Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Inside the Music. Right now, we're going to jump back into what I call Let's Talk Music with my good friend, Dennis Patrick. How you doing, Dennis?
How we doing? What's going on, Andy? How you been?
Oh, just another day in paradise here in California. It's actually chilly here today. So,
Okay. Well,
for
at
us
least you're at
Californians.
least you got some distance between you and the flames.
Yeah, we do. Thank God for that. My heart goes out for all those people. I honestly, I would have no idea how I would be coping with that. Uh, Good Lord, to be
Yeah, it
displaced
looks
like
like
that instantaneous. It's like, ugh.
hell on earth, man, from
Yeah, yeah, really,
what
really.
we've been
And
seeing
I
here,
won't,
yeah.
I won't get into the politics of it because most people won't like my views.
Understood.
But yeah, we'll just leave that
Whoever
one.
thought fire could be political, you know?
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So let's get on to you and what you're here to do. Today we were going to talk about a production you were a part of or you got to do. And I'll let you describe everything about that and who the artist is. So take it away.
Well, it's kind of one of those things that, I mentioned to you. I've been a fan of your channel and
Thank you.
watching dutifully. I think I heard about it through Mark Bennett,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
one of the interviews he did. And so I've been watching that, and my wife was like, "Hey, why don't you do one of those?" I'm like, uh, "Don't really know what to say, nothing to promote." And so like would have it now, I do have something to promote. Just finished up a record with a local artist named Joshua Finsel, and the record is called No Honey. It should be out February 6th,
Oh, awesome.
and it was just a, a great. I we got a fantastic team together. Everybody's played well, communicated well. We did a lot of recordings, live off the floor, um, and just kind of happy with how it turned out. We had a
Yeah.
friend of mine come on board and mix it, named Mark Platty, who was involved with like David Bowie and The Cure and
Oh,
Prince,
so he's
and
no
he brought.
slouch.
He's no slouch, and got to run everything through his beautiful analog Neve 5088, and
Whoa.
but yeah, it was just a great marriage of like acoustic kind of organic analog stuff.
Right.
Did a string section for a few numbers, and it just kind of came together better
You,
than other things have. At least coming out of COVID when none of us could be in like the same room,
right,
you know.
right, right. When you said the name Neve, I got the spirit of Neve come through me because I got a chill. So
Oh yeah,
that
that
board, I'm
was
like, oh man. So that's awesome that you got to use equipment that me, a home studio kind of guy. I got to sit in front of a Neve console at Bob Clearmountain's place.
Oh, you
But
were out there.
I went to Warren's book signing, Warren Hewitt's
Oh
book
wow, cool.
signing, or I'm sure his book launch for
Uh-huh.
that book sitting right there.
All right.
So
Yeah, I just heard that Bob lost his place last week.
yeah, I heard that same thing. Yeah.
Ah, that's
Uh,
just devastating.
Again, that I just can't fathom what it would be. I guess the important thing is to know that your family would be safe. Everything else can be replaced, as they say. So, you know,
There's, the historical loss. I know he had a lot of vintage stuff. I mean, Clear
right,
Mountain, you could put him on a 8 channel Mackie, and he's gonna be. It's Clear Mountain.
right, right, right,
It's gonna be fine.
right,
But yeah, man, that's such just like it's unfathomable.
right, right. It
That
is.
kind of loss, you know.
Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. And the sad thing about it too is a lot of that property down there. I shouldn't say a lot of it, but some of that property down there in Malibu and that area, they have a lot of horses and a lot of ranch animals too. So, I mean, hopefully they got all those out, without too much loss in regards
Yeah,
to
my
that.
wife works in TV and film, so she's got a lot of contacts out there.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's one story after another of people just devastated and, out with the clothes on their back kind of
Right, right. So let's give your wife a little what exactly does she do, or how does
She's a unit production manager for
okay.
television shows and film.
Awesome. That's
So
great. Wow.
yeah, I joke around that she spends $10 million before I've had coffee in the morning. It's not our money. Thankfully,
Yeah, but
that
it's just nice to say you.
I'd be bouncing some checks around town, but
That's awesome.
yeah,
So
but she's been at that.
that's great, man. So back to your production on
Yeah, the
your
record.
clients record. Now I got a chance to listen to some. Now to me, it took me back to the old style of country music. Uh, it's that's what it took me back to. Now, would you say that's something you agree with, or
Yeah, it was a chance to play with some of those Appalachian colors. We had, fiddle and
hmm
washboard and harps and minstrel banjo, fretless banjo
right,
on some of these, and mouth harp and upright bass and mandolin, all that, all those colors that we kind of got to play around with this time that I don't always have immediate access to.
yeah,
So it was just important to keep everything analog and live piano, live V3, live strings, nothing dialed in, from keyboards and samples.
right, right. And now I'm horrible with genres. So would you consider that more folk, or would you consider that more on the countryside?
Don't know. Probably alternative folk,
Yeah,
contemporary. Yeah.
that's it rides that fine line of and like I said, I'm horrible with genres. I can't tell you
Oh yeah, it's
where
impossible.
what song's supposed to go and what.
And there are
I
micro
don't.
genres upon micro genres now.
Right, right, right. Which to me just cracks me up. So
Yeah, we just sort of tried not to think about any of that.
yeah, yeah.
Not sure if
Just
you can set up to make something that's going to neatly
fit.
fit into one box or another.
Right, right, exactly. Especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but back to the production side. So your job was to set up the microphones, or what was your detailed
Yeah, help with
job?
working out some of the arrangements, and maybe we tried different key or a couple of different changes. And then it was kind of, yeah, we used a lot of ribbon mics and
Hmm.
tube
Oh,
pre's, and it was sort of set up and get out of the way, let him do his thing. And then, all the songs started as guitar vocal demos.
right.
Then we broke out about half the record and put a band together, took it in live. And because I wanted to blend the chemistry of everybody playing together. So we put it together, 5 or 6 people,
Awesome.
um, all standing around in the same room, no headphones, just listening to each other in the room. And because I find a lot of people, they're used to playing gigs, they're
Yeah.
not used to, studio being behind glass or in a booth.
Right.
So I wanted to get that communication, that interplay between players.
Right.
And it was sort of like bleed be damned. We position mics so it's like the
Best you
guitar
could.
mic would reject the vocal. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I wanted to get that sort of that that soup,
Sure.
that comes off the floor between players playing together.
So those of you that are new to this recording gig thing here, and when Dennis talks about bleed, he's talking about everything coming into every microphone that's in a live environment. So when you first get a mix to do that has all those little nuances going in different directions, which could cause phasing and whatnot, other things, you just kind of learn to live with it. And the first time I got to do a mix where I had all that involved, I was scratching my head. I was trying to gate everything out of the way, and it just seemed
Oh
to
yeah.
kill it. It just seemed to kill it. So now I've kind of been, if I unless I want something to stick out a little bit more, I won't even bother with the gate. I just let everything blend together and sound lovely.
I think there's room to embrace it.
Hmm.
Like we were doing
Exactly.
string sections, and I used the room mics just because I wanted that blend of everything kind of
Right.
meshing together. Same with backing vocals. It was
Right.
very rare that we had anybody do a solo vocal. It was all, groups of two or three,
Right.
and having those harmonies just kind of gel,
Right.
rather than everything isolated and this person stops there and that person stops there. So you got to draw in fades and whatnot. It was better to get it, kind of live and a little raw.
Right.
There's room for accidents.
Well, that was the thing between, and I really try not to put too much. I don't know I'm trying to think of the correct way to say it without offending anybody, but the music from the 60s, even, earlier, and all the way up to, and I'm guessing probably mid 90s when Pro Tools came involved, and then you can actually sit there, you can cut everything up and splice everything a lot easier than it was to tape, and blah blah blah.
And print 160 tracks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's something about that natural, not playing to a click. I don't know if your guys, if they did play to a click, or was this
We
all
were
natural?
everything was off the grid.
Right. And
So
and
there's
and
natural fluctuation.
so I have a story that one year, actually my first year to the NAMM show, uh, I wanted to go and meet up with Greg Undo, who's the Cubase, Yamaha Steinberg. I call him the Yoda of Cubase, because he knows everything there is need to know about that DAW. And so he had the original take uh, of Boston's "More Than a Feeling"
Wow.
that he was using as a reference to show how he can take that song and and make it into as tight as a song is nowadays.
Yeah.
So when you listen to it, you wouldn't know it listening to it, but the band speeds up, slows down, speeds up, slows down, and it's all natural sounding, but in a good way. And then when he took that track and he pushed it into Cubase, and then he what's that, when you trying to think of
Quantize
it,
everything to the grid.
quantize everything,
Yeah.
it just took away all that goodness of what music to me represented. So that was a ear opener and an eye opener type thing for me to recognize that, man, you really shouldn't be quantizing. I mean, that type of music. Now dance music,
Yeah.
is a different
Oh,
story.
dance. Yeah.
But for the
Well, there's a
music,
difference between dance music from like Chic, which
right,
was Bob Clearmountain as well,
right.
and it's the EDM of
That's
today.
what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah. Where everything's got,
Yeah.
you got to have that.
That's something I remember Andy Wallace made mention of years ago. He said, when you quantize stuff and line everything up to the grid, it can actually sound smaller. Like there's
Right,
less of an impact. Like you
right,
might have a bass player and a drummer landing on a one or a four or something like that.
right,
And when it's right on top of each other, it just doesn't have that spread, that impact.
right, right,
And yeah, it's true. So I love it when music kind of, you don't really know it, but a rhythm section can push and pull
right,
naturally.
right, right, right. Um, yeah, and then my understanding is that, so for these guys, for these obviously were professional musicians that came in and helped you out with this,
Not
or
always.
no,
Not
is that
always. No,
not
no.
always?
He's lucky enough that he's pretty well known around this area.
Right.
Plays in a pretty popular band. This was his solo record, his
Mm-hmm.
first time out of the gate. But he drew on friends. The string section I hired, they're pros. But everybody else is kind of just in it for the love of it.
Right, right,
Mark, who mixed the record, Mark Plotty. He's seasoned veteran.
right, right,
And he kind of helped sew everything together on the back end. But and he and I go back for years. He's finished a few things that I've started. Um, But yeah, it was a lot of friends, and uh, uh, my daughter and her best friend sang on it, and Josh's kid sang a duet on one. So yeah, we're grooming the next generation.
There you go. Awesome.
Yeah.
My thing was what I was gonna try to say was, did they instantaneously have that feel for one another, or was there a 2 week period, 3 week period for them to come together, or was it
Oh,
just, you know what I mean?
well, we sort of cut out every tune, just guitar and vocal, and then figured out, oh, this would sound better with a band. This would sound better with strings, and kind of figured out track by track.
Okay. Okay.
So it was like, it's kind of a journey. I can't
Right.
say we set out to make a record like this, but
Right.
it's kind of
Right.
how it just sort of ended up.
Where it is. Oh, you froze up.
Think you froze up, or did I
Is it?
freeze up?
My it's I don't know why it's mine. Mine has a full connection there. Yeah, there you are.
Okay, I
Now I
got
see you.
audio back. There you
There
go.
you
All right,
go.
all right.
So,
I wanted
yeah.
to some. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, go ahead. You finish what you were gonna say.
No, you mentioned Cubase before.
Hmm.
Yeah, you've been a pretty long time user of that platform.
I That's okay. Yeah, the story goes is quick story on this is that Linda and I, when we started this process of writing music, uh, I went down to Guitar Center, and I was actually going there to get like a Tascam uh, digital recording device. And the guy says, "You don't want that. You need to go get on one of these DAW." I had no idea what it was. And he just kind of
Yeah,
talked me into buying this, program, which was the L4 version, which was 2005, I guess. So it was, you know, kind of fresh, not the,
yeah.
first version, but not the uh, most advanced version of there it is now today. But so I went home, put it on my computer, opened it up, and I had no idea, and I closed it and set it aside because
Yeah,
it wasn't what I was used to. And so that,
trying to feed the tape in.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So it took me a few years actually before I jumped in. And the reason I got back into it was because we started the band My Own Misery, and then the drummer, my good friend Kenny Dre, he was trying his damnedest to get me to understand what a DAW was, and I had zero interest in it. And God bless him, because if I would have taken that knowledge that he was sharing with me at that moment in time, I would have had a better understanding. But things didn't work out with that band, and so I had no choice but to actually go in there and actually start watching videos with YouTube. And when I got my hands dirty enough with that limited edition old version of it, I went and it snowballed into what it is now. So yeah, I got
Yeah,
to. I'm no. I'm a novice compared to most people because I don't really use all the MIDI stuff. That's not my. That's
yeah. Neither
I
do
have
I.
no
Yeah,
idea how to do it. I use it more for recording and mixing. That's what I do. So
yeah.
in a
I
nutshell,
treat
that's the
Pro
story.
Tools like a tape machine. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I still try to make decisions out of the box and commit to
Yeah.
compression and EQ and
So that's
all, and then
another.
you just it's like coming from tape. You learn to live with that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
have 99 layers of undo.
So the band My Own Misery, when we started doing that, he wanted everything to be direct input. So recording electric guitars, I didn't have any distortion,
Uh,
none of the delay, nothing that I thought would sound magical on my side. And then, I would give him the thing and he would fix things and then put it into an amp, a sim, and then go his direction with things, which was fine because I didn't know any of that stuff. So, uh, but now coming off that experience, I went back to doing things how I want them to sound going into it.
yeah, do it.
Even
Commit.
even with Linda's vocals,
Hmm.
uh, Sergio and I sometimes we butt heads sometimes on that because I might overcompress something or whatever on her take. Um, but for the most part, he allows me to do my thing on my side with my guitar. And if something's not quite right to his liking, he'll tell me, "Why don't you try doing this?" Which I will do happily. And but I love the idea that you try to do your coloring before it gets into, you
Well,
know,
having enough options too. Like if
right,
if you're dealing with an acoustic guitar player, I'll put 3, 4 mics on varying distances and
right,
different, you know, coloration to sort of give yourself enough options on the back end.
right.
But I usually just pick one or maybe blend two.
Yeah,
It depends on what works in the track.
right. Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Um, and there's still times where I will do direct input using a box, uh, and
well, if
that
you
way
don't
there,
know who's on the back end, maybe this is going to
right,
an independent mixer,
right,
somebody for finishing. Yeah, give them options.
right, exactly, exactly. But if you're by yourself and you know what you're looking for, aim for it.
Yeah.
And one thing it does, being I do, a lot of mixing nowadays, is that there's less time spent trying to figure out EQ if you kind of, you know,
Yeah.
already have it beforehand. There's less maintenance to do cleanup wise. You know,
And
that's
also
my
just
belief.
from an arrangement
Yeah, too.
standpoint,
That
there's so
too.
many things that can be fixed by arrangement before you even commit to tape or
Yeah.
digital or
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So it's
if
so
there are
cool.
frequencies that are clashing, figure out which needs to be dominant.
Yeah, yeah. Play the track and then figure out what needs to be done, just like you would be doing a mix.
Yeah.
That's how I've taken it upon myself, to do things. It was so funny that just 7, 8 years ago, it was no, you don't want to compress nothing. Let me compress it afterwards.
Right, right, right.
But now it seems like now it's slowly coming back to where people are starting to do uh, more in the box type of compression with the ability to do it within the DAW now, just to
Well, it was
control control things.
years before any of that stuff sounded good,
Right. Yeah, that's
to a
true.
lot of people.
Right. Right. So, but I'm happy that you and your guys' production was thought of uh, beforehand, just not just
Yeah, we were doing.
you
I mean,
know.
I did a lot of Neve stuff into a old Gates tube unit. That
Hmm.
was our vocal sound, and we switched. Well, I'll admit, I switched my converters not halfway through, a quarter in. I
Right.
I, I made the jump from Apogee into got a Burl and Mothership, and that you can. I actually reprinted a lot of stuff through that after the fact because it responds almost like tape. You can get more saturation
Right. Right.
without digital clipping or anything like that. It kind of feels like
Yeah.
fuzzes it up a little bit.
Yeah. So that guy right there, that's my
Mhm.
Tascam Model 24,
Wow. Okay.
and you know, technically, it's still considered a digital aspect because you can record into a SD card, or you can
Hmm.
just plug it into your DAW and use it as an interface, and then it's considered analog.
Hmm.
I guess. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know.
Not sure. Not sure on
Somebody
that
out there.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody out there, if you're smarter than me, please let me know because I'm still a little confused on that. But my point was I'm trying to get to is that guy right there, I can hit hard as hell with my stuff
Yeah.
and it doesn't clip.
Exactly.
There's no digital, you know, uh,
Yep.
with it. And I was, because we did a song, Fleetwood Mac song. We
Oh, the
did,
dreams.
Not Dreams. There's another one
Was
coming
it
out.
Dreams?
We haven't.
Okay.
Dang it, which one was it? Shoot, where she's talking about her childhood in the attic. And anyway,
Is that
it's
Landslide?
no, not Landslide.
No.
It's a huge dynamic song. It starts off
Okay.
here and then it goes like this, and it gets loud,
Hmm.
singing wise. And I was having a tough time controlling everything going in from my gear into Cubase. So when I got the Model 24, I was like, Linda, you can sing as loud as you want.
Those things make that decision for you,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, and it was like great.
and you don't have to slam with level, you know. I
No,
mean, there were certain things like there were certain limitations to tape, like you had to EQ into it,
right, right,
but and hit it with enough level that to get over the noise floor.
right, right.
Um, so I'm glad in some respects, but I still like warming things up before, through tubes or
Yeah,
you know
yeah, I agree.
hitting transistors.
Right, right. So what microphone of choice was it for vocals on your singer?
A
Do you
lot
remember
of
what it was?
times, we had a Perlman TM1 we used a bit, which is kind of
Nice.
like a 47,
Yeah.
47 clone that Dave Perlman makes.
Hmm.
I'm using a Coles 4038 on a couple things and Royers, and I've got an old Reslow Ribbon, one of the old Beatles mics that got
Right,
rebuilt, and that's a kind of a character mic. And then I think there's a Telefunken in there somewhere.
right, right.
Um, so it would depend on the song, which we, you know, kind of which vocal direction, what kind of coloration we wanted.
And again, for those of you that are new to this recording thing, the EQ of a microphone can change directions of a song quickly. In other words,
Yes.
what I'm trying to say is that go if you have the ability to have more than one microphone, try more than one microphone out. If you don't, that's fine as well. Maybe go in there and high pass something, or try to with an EQ beforehand to try to get it to sound where how it's going to fit in the song. Um, we were just having this discussion the other day I was having a discussion with somebody else in regards to microphones and how you can use that as an EQ.
Yeah. That's where it starts.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So,
And
um,
the amp or the room. I should say we also had a Neumann 89 that got used a fair bit on vocals,
so
which I like a little more than an 87.
right,
Doesn't have that 4K. I think it's the 4K bump that the 87 has.
right.
This is a little more. It's a little more neutral, but still has a nice body.
So when you get to cradle one of those in your hands,
Uh-huh.
like a Neumann type of microphone like that, I've never actually done anything like that. So that must be quite a good feeling you get, or is that something I'm a freaking nerd when it comes to gear. I
Yeah,
geek out on things.
it's a
So
tool. I'm lucky. I've benefited from some others' misfortune. I'm afraid to say, in that when I got into this, there were a lot of independent studios in like Brooklyn who opened
mhm.
and got lots of nice gear and then folded in 3 months. So they were selling stuff off pennies on the dollar, and I was able to snatch. I was doing pretty well then, so I was able to snatch up a lot of that room treatment on for cut rate, and old gear and stuff like that. So
Awesome.
I was pretty fortunate that I was able to collect then. But they're tools,
Right.
whether it's Coles or a Bayer. I want something. I guess my ears developed now to the point where I'm just getting old. I don't like things like overly bright
Hmm.
and that
Same.
transient detail and everything.
I'm the
I like
same way.
something that's a little more neutral and a little more, that gray area where things are
I
kind of rounded off.
Right. I'm the same way. So maybe it is a an age thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same way. The high frequencies just irritate my
Everything's
ears.
too bright. too bright and too compressed and too
Right.
loud.
Right.
You know?
So
Well, yeah,
maybe
we lived through the loudness wars of the
we
last, what,
did. We
20
did.
years or so.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's funny now because now, the aiming at 12 loofs is now 9 on my side.
I don't even, I can't keep up.
Yeah.
You know, I just know that some of the stuff that we lived through in the '90s when everything was just like so slammed and a
Right.
brick wall.
Right.
In 20 years from now, people are going to get nostalgic for that.
Right.
Even though it just happens, right?
Right. 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 Yeah. The sound wave sausage is some people I've heard it talked
Yeah.
about.
Oh man. I'd see stuff come back from top rate mastering houses, and it's literally a block from start
Right.
to finish.
Right. Right.
Zero dynamics whatsoever.
Right. Right.
And I
I
don't know if that was the market dictating that, or
right.
the access to technology being what it is. I'm really not sure.
I don't know. Mastering to me is another animal that you know, I'm venturing into, but it's got a lot of teeth.
Yeah, yeah.
So, um,
I'm fortunate. I've gotten to back when attended sessions were still a thing. I got to work alongside a couple of really good people, but
right.
it's not yet. And there's
Yeah.
there's a true art behind it. I remember doing an attended sketch session with a guy named Scott Hull from
Hmm.
Master Disc, um, and we were working on a record, and he's like, "Hey, do you mind if I try something? You got a Grammy for Dylan and Steely Dan. Of course, if you want to try something, go ahead." And he took a ballad that was later in the song order, um, and he's like, he dipped it down like 3 or 4 dB. He's like, the reason I'm doing this to just sort of create these peaks and valleys,
Hmm.
dynamics within the record, which was already pretty dynamic.
Right.
And yeah, it makes you, when everything isn't like right here, if
Right.
something is suddenly down
Right.
three, four
Right.
dB, you got to lean in,
Right.
and it's no longer a passive experience. You're an active listen.
Right.
And that always kind of stuck with me.
Yeah. Joe
And just,
Carroll.
go
Joe
ahead.
Carroll is a big believer in having you draw into the song and not push back like
Yeah.
the old Memorex commercial,
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
When you can
it's
engage the listener and then surprise them with dynamic movement.
right, right, right. Yeah. Um, so one quick thing for me before I forget to do this.
Sure.
Will you have a link or anything like that for your artist to that people
I
can
will
go
send
to?
it to you. And actually, this record too was done by Scott Hall, and
Okay.
it's on vinyl. It'll
Okay.
be out
Oh,
on vinyl as well,
uh,
which I haven't done in 25 years, I think.
right.
Have I, yeah, mixed for vinyl. So
So the vinyl thing. Uh, is it true that you kind of mix things for a vinyl compared to CD quality? There's a little different
yeah,
nuances that needs to be
yeah.
done?
I mean,
Not so
modern
much.
production, it's like the low end
Right.
will pop the
Needle.
needle out of the
Right.
groove.
Right.
So we had to keep that low end mono,
Right.
and just kind of steering the tonality a little bit differently
Yeah.
of particular songs. We did plosives. Obviously, you got to have the ear out for it. You don't want to let that go in. You know,
Into a needle.
yeah. Well, you don't want to let that go to your mastering engineer because it makes you look like a newbie. But but multiple sets of ears along that way to make sure you don't miss any. A lot of people checking your work along the way.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I mean, Josh said very early on. I mean, it was kind of a legacy project for him that he wanted to do vinyl. I immediately thought of Scott because he has his own lathe and he does his own cutting. So I figured if we could keep as much of that stuff as analog as possible until the last minute, and keep it under as few roofs. I didn't
Yeah.
want to go from here to here to here to here. Because every step of the way, there might be some minor degradation, or
Right.
somebody gets an idea to do this instead of that.
Right.
So Mark was on board with that. He understood it immediately, and he and he's just such a great mixer. He
That's
was able to
awesome.
preserve all that analog richness and
Right.
add some character and play with the sound field, top to bottom and from front to back.
That's sweet. There was a few years ago, there was, I don't, maybe it might have been Warren Huart
Mm-hmm.
who was back in Tennessee. I want to say it was somewhere in Tennessee where they actually did a recording straight to vinyl. So it was actually being mixed and mastered straight onto the vinyl while the vinyl was printing.
Yeah,
Have you seen that before?
I'm not sure if I saw that one. I think I want to say Vance Powell did something similar.
It might have been that might have been who it was.
Okay.
But it was, and they were, it's a lot of pressure on the band for one, not to
Oh
screw
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
And I think they did. I want to say they did like three or four, maybe an A and B side. I think they did two songs for it. Uh, but yeah, to watch them go through all that and not mess up, and to have a
Or
instantaneous
letting them mess up and kind of putting it out anyway.
that too.
So leaving some of those rough edges because
Right, right, right.
that puts it in the room.
Right, right, right. And it was really fun to watch too. I wish if I could find the link, I'll put it down below in the video because it's cool to watch, and to see the kind of the pressure on the guys' faces too.
There is that.
And
There is
everybody
that.
was watching. It wasn't just the band; it was like people there watching this happen. So they were performing in front of people too. So
Yeah,
and it was really cool to see especially the guy that was doing the lathe. Yeah, that was good. After
yeah.
everything, even he was kind of shocked. So,
Well, there's the technical aspect and then there's the artistic,
right,
and when those. But yeah, the old way of making records, uh, is just something that appeals to me.
right, right. Yeah.
Now, I think back. Do you know Dave Cobb?
Mm-mm. Sounds
He was a
familiar.
producer. He's a producer out of Nashville, and he does a lot of
Oh, okay. Sure, sure. I know who you're talking about.
Chris Stapleton and all
Sure,
that.
sure. I know who you're talking about now.
And he's the same way. It's a lot of stuff that's live off the floor, and you're getting that vocal take live with the band.
Right.
There aren't fixes.
No.
You can't go in and punch a word or punch a line. You
Right.
commit to the take.
Yep.
And that's something that appeals. He actually did a record for Barry Gibb a couple
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
Sure.
And Barry had a son who was playing one of Cobb's productions. Powell might have been involved in that as well. And he was like, "Wait, people are still making music like this." So he called Dave and got in that room. Dave also, I think it might have been the John Prine, that last John Prine record.
Right.
And it just the warmth and humanity,
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
catch. I don't care if there's something that
Right.
there's
Right.
there's distortion in the first 20 seconds of Chris
Right.
Stapleton,
Right.
but eventually your ears adjust to it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And
It doesn't become it's not a mistake. It's the character of the
right. 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 Yeah. I think again, my opinion means absolutely nothing, but I think there needs to be less time spent on timing ventures unless they're so far off that it's
and the
completely,
search for perfection.
right,
Auto
right,
tuning everything, gridding
right,
everything. I mean,
right.
I guess it's kind of a mixed blessing because I've been on projects. I did one record with an artist, and I don't want to say who, but it was over labored, where
Right,
every note was massaged and
right. Yeah.
quantized and fixed and moved and tuned.
Hmm.
And by the end of it, I was just like, we edited the life out of the record, which is
Right.
sad.
Yeah.
And I went and I said, the next thing I do, I'm going to do just like live off the floor, warts and all, and be damned, and that was horrible. So I think
There's a happy
probably
medium somewhere.
It
Right.
sounded like a band falling apart, which So there's some middle ground there and something to be
Mhm.
learned from. Embrace it, but judicious use maybe.
Right, right. That's a good term right there. Perfect. Hmm. I would agree. Um, yeah, when you guys were busy recording, did you guys? You said you guys changed keys sometimes, or that was all decisions made before you actually laid down the recordings, obviously.
Usually
But
before, sometimes on the spot. We do a couple of takes, one in,
no,
drop D and one in.
now did you guys use what's called the Nashville uh, technique? Where they can say, let's put it in four. And my understanding is very limited on this, but I guess they have like 1 through 12. Or was it? Yeah, 1 through 12, I guess. For and they can say, let's put it at, so every number is represented in a key, and they can
Uh-huh.
take it, and all the musicians in that room know exactly what
Oh, so
key.
like the Nashville numbers
Yeah, that's what
method?
I'm talking about. Nashville
Okay.
numbers, right? Is that something you
Um,
guys use or not, or have you?
no, not at that point. We did enough of that stuff in pre-production.
Okay,
But we would sometimes transpose from E to G or something in
right,
in
right.
A.
So myself, I couldn't do that. That's why I'm not a studio musician.
I did enough sideman work uh in the, I guess, early aughts and
Mhm.
teens that I could, you sort of learn it.
Right.
But I can't say I'm a pro at it,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you're better than I
But
am. Put it that
well, you
way.
just got to figure out, if something sounds natural for the singer in a given key,
Yeah.
you do it, and
Right.
if not, you redo it.
Right.
So,
Right. Right. Speaking of that, now have you ever came across, and not with just this, maybe not with just this artist, but maybe somebody else,
mhm.
to where the song was written in a key, and then you decided to change the key, but the key you changed it to sounded so unnatural uh, to the original. Have you ever had that? Have you ever, what I'm talking
Yeah,
about? That it
yeah.
just
I'm
it goes too far up the scale or too far down the scale, and it takes away that feel or
it's usually something that, I'll listen to the singer, and if they're, I mean, I like those moments when somebody is kind of reaching for something they might not be able to quite grasp. You
right,
get those,
right
bluesy
nuances.
seconds.
Sure,
But if it's something that suddenly is losing emotion, like if the emotion isn't the same,
that's what I'm talking about.
yeah, then we'll try to guide that towards
Yeah,
where it translates the most.
right. Yeah, that's something that we've had a couple of songs where it we changed the key, and but it just kind of loses something moving it up a key. It loses that feel to me,
That can happen,
you know. And we're dealing with that right now with one song right now. I wanted to go back to the original key uh, to what Sergio wrote it in. So we're going to you know go back to the original key and see what we can do with it, because to me when we moved it up too far, and now it just lost that sexiness that it had in the original key.
Yeah, that I
That's what I
understand
told
completely. Yeah,
Sergio. So
yeah, you got to let that dictate,
right,
So yeah, it's really whether the singer is
right,
able to emote, and sometimes, something where there is a note that's slightly too low, out of their range,
right.
too low or high, that gets them off, uh, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
off
get
their
it.
game.
Right, right,
That,
right,
that can
right,
kind of create, and you find something new that wasn't there before.
right.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. But
I remember
sometimes,
years ago, I was tape monkey for a French producer, and he's going, listen back, to just the vocal, and
mhm,
make note of any errors. I'm like, I don't speak French, and he's like, that doesn't matter. Listen for the emotion, and if you can close your eyes and like tell that
mhm,
the artist it sounds like they're giving something,
mhm.
that's the one you use. And if it's an and or a but, or it's supposed to be the other way, I don't care.
Right,
It's what's, the feeling is what's gonna
right,
translate, or at least what you want, hope to will translate.
right, right. That makes complete sense. Yeah, it does. It does. Um, Did you guys have any like happy mistakes to where like he did something different out of the blue?
Too many. Well, yeah. I mean, there were a
I
couple of
wouldn't call
songs.
them
He's like,
mistakes. I shouldn't say mistakes, but like,
I usually say call it calculated accidents.
there you go,
You
something
know?
like that. Yeah, where
Yeah.
it just works
Um.
out.
Well, I think it's always good to have room to let accidents happen. You
Right,
know.
right,
But yeah, there were a couple of tunes he thought would like not make the cut, and I kind of ended up, thinking that they were album defining.
right.
We had a fiddle player in who just knocked my socks off, and it was, I don't want to say adding, it was almost an afterthought. We booked a mandolin, and she showed up with her fiddle. So, oh, okay, maybe we'll give it 20
Right.
minutes at the end of the session. And we went another 2 hours deep with her. She was just so extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't ready, honestly, for how much of an impact she made on this track. It was album defining,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and
There's
unscripted. It's like, here, throw up mics and do what you feel in the moment. She
right.
came
Right.
in cold. She came in cold and unprepared. So
Yeah.
it's really just inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because Linda does that quite a bit with stuff. She'll be having some fun and she'll just do something, that she thought would sound good at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, do that again. Do that again. Keep
And
that in there,
yeah, those are the moments you got to mine for those. It's like sifting for gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Exactly.
and it might be a laugh, or it might
Right.
be, something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I do a lot of the lyric writing and stuff, and then she comes in and changes things around, to her liking. But there are some things that when writing the song, and I'm probably you guys maybe experience the same thing, where you hear it a certain way, and then the singer will hear it some other different way, and those are moments that are studio gold, basically,
Yeah.
you know.
And there are times when you're working with bands or artists where they've come off the road, and everything is like so well rehearsed and over rehearsed
Right.
that if switching a key
Yeah.
will suddenly reframe it.
Yeah.
I've had singers, geez, stand on ladders, sing lying down. And,
Yep.
I've switched shoes, like, so like the right shoe was on their left foot, and anything to just
Their head.
mess with their brain chemistry
Right.
and get
Right.
them out of the, okay, I've done this 1,000 times before. How do you
Right.
make it different? And that sometimes that little twist,
Yeah.
putting some off guard,
Yeah.
will bring some life back into something that's kind of overdone.
Right. Right. And
But yeah, go ahead.
I was say the same goes for musicians too. Just to pick up a different guitar every so often, just has a different tone to it or something will change your idea of writing something. So
And
you
many of
know,
the musicians I work with, I find that there's a sweet spot between first hearing it and having it down cold,
right.
where
Hmm.
it's rehearsed to the point where, like, okay, I know what I'm doing. That
Right.
there's a point somewhere in the middle where there's a little bit of still experimentation and
Right.
nerves.
Right.
And if you can capture that,
Right.
that's kind of where the magic is.
Right. I agree. I agree. I do that. I do.
I mean,
So
there's no button for that. There's no
no,
plug-in that
no.
can roll that down after the fact. So you really got to catch it in the room,
Right.
and be
Right.
open, always be recording and just open
Yep.
to catching
Yeah. I
those
agree.
moments.
And I hope anybody that's out there watching and's gotten this far to this point that they've come to the realization is what I'm trying to say here, and I think you are too, is that don't be afraid to make mistakes because those might just be the gold you're looking for. you know, Did I lose your connection again? There you are. Did you hear me?
You kind of froze up here, so I missed that. But
Okay. So what
it sounded poetic.
what I was just getting at was that, you know, don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to maybe even make a mistake that might be the happy gold you're looking for. is
Yeah.
was what I'm trying to say, and like you always said that you just said there before was to always record, always have that button on in the red on the red pushed
Always have a
in.
57 plugged in
Yep.
just
Yep.
in case something else goes wrong, So yeah.
Exactly. So, but so before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to say, like equipment wise, you guys used, or uh, was there any other thing that, studio gear wise that, we kind of went through all the nuances of, uh, a lot of it, but is there anything else maybe I left out that
Well,
maybe,
again, it was like a lot of neutral mics. I got to give a hat tip to Andrew
oh, it froze up it.
right down the road here.
And say that again, because it kind of froze up.
Oh
And,
yeah, I got to give a hat tip to Andrew Roberts from Purple Audio, who's
oh,
just a few doors down from here.
mm-hmm,
We used some of his pre's and compressors. Made a huge difference. I think the Burl, uh, they were great in terms of not just their build quality, but also their customer support because it took. I booked 3 weeks to switch over,
mm-hmm,
and it took a little bit longer than that. But they're it's just you can abuse it like tape.
right.
So it's great. But other than that, by the time it got to Mark Plotty, it was his ears. Yeah, it went through a Neve. And some of it started with a Neve, but it was the artistry that he brought to it to
Right,
make the
right,
mixes kind of extra dimensional.
right, right. You,
But
you're,
yeah,
you're,
it was a great experience. Good team of people. Couldn't have scripted it, didn't plan it. It was all kind of but came together by chance, really. But
wow, that's awesome.
glad with how this one turned out.
Yeah, yeah, and then for people to find your studio, do you have any media, websites or anything like that that they can go to?
I used to have a website, and I got didn't really update it much. So,
Okay,
but like a lot of my work is like
is
word of mouth
word of mouth.
and but
Okay,
yeah, but there's Facebook and Instagram. Uh, it's Deadless Productions,
okay,
but I'll shoot you a link.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. That'd be great,
yeah.
man. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit down with me and talk about the production side of things, how they went with the album, and give the artist name one more time if you please.
Joshua Finsel, and the record's called No Honey.
Okay, yeah. So look for it,
Out
February
early
6th.
February. Yep,
February 6th, is that correct?
yep, that's
Yep.
correct.
Okay. So just a few days before Valentine's, and that's something you can get a gift for your lady or your man.
Okay.
A little extra treat besides the chocolates. And why not? It's really
Yeah.
good music. You guys won't be disappointed. Really good
Well, thank
music.
you,
Very good. So
and thanks for having me. Appreciate the time.
absolutely. So with that said, y'all take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of Let's Talk Music. I almost forgot what it was. All right, man. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Catch you soon. Bye.
Bye.